now doing a change when the form is submitted instead of when we click a button, which automatically makes the inner button work, right? It just takes care of that. But we're not actually taking the input that we typed in there. So that's kind of a bummer. So what can we do about that? Let's go ahead and put, I'm going to take heading.text content equals click out. I'll go ahead and throw a debugger down here. Let's see what we can do. All right, so I have heading now. And I have my event. Now we happen to know that the form that was submitted is this form up here, but it's better if this function can kind of live on its own, because it knows which form was submitted through the event target, right? So it's better to get the form data through that event target than with a global variable that we already declared out here. Because theoretically, we could change this function to handle an event from a totally different form. And our code should still work because we already know which form was submitted through the event. So we should get to that data through the event. Like event.target, that's our form. So let's see if we can find the form data from in there. So event.target, we can make a little variable for ourselves here. Let's say const f equals event.target. F.elements gives us a little, it is f equals event.target. Okay. F.elements. So that gives us two things. That gives us the input and the button in another array-like structure that isn't technically an array. So that's interesting. We could do it that way. But since we had the foresight to give our input a name, a flick name, we can also type f.flickName. And that gives us the input. Hover over it, we can see it is indeed that input. Cool. So we have the input. And we have the heading, right? Because my debugger was down here, so we already saved the heading to the variable heading. So I could say heading.textContent equals f.flickName. Right? Cool. Just exactly what I wanted. No. Because f.flickName is not what we typed in the input, it's the actual input itself. And that is not text. That's an input. So it's going to very helpfully convert it to a string first. And when you convert an HTML input element into a string, it turns it to the string square bracket object HTML input element square bracket. Not what we meant. We want what is typed in the input, not the input itself. Anybody do this yesterday? Accidentally? Yeah. So how do we get what was typed in? Dot value, yeah. So f.flickName dot value. There we go. So that's what we want there. So inside our event handler, we'll go ahead and set a variable const f equals event.target. Again, f is a really short variable name, but this is a function that is designed to handle form submission. I think it's reasonable to have a variable named f that is the form because that's kind of a common thing to do. So I will accept that as a variable name. But it is not a contest to come up with the shortest variable names possible. So after we grab that form, let's get the flick name. So const flick name equals f.flickName dot value. Then we grab the heading, and we can change the heading's text content to flick name. And with any luck, this will do just what we were trying to do. Fantastic Four, the one from the mid-2000s where Chris Evans played the Human Torch. Not highly recommended. Hey, totally worked though, right? So now we're actually getting the input from the form and changing the heading to that, and we're making sure that the inner key works because we are not beasts of the field, but human beings And we do not want to have to take our hands off the keyboard if we don't have to. Cool. So hey, super mega bonus credit, hyper fighting. Go us. So these changes are just in my working directory now. I want them to actually be part of the history. I do not need to manually add each file if I don't want to. Visual Studio Code's Git client will just commit all of them if you don't add things separately. So what did I do? This commit will update the heading with text from the form. Command enter or control enter on Windows. That commits it, but it's still to the left of the dotted line. I want to push it on up to my remote, which happens to be GitHub. Ellipsis menu, push. Check it out up here on GitHub. Now I have 7 commits, the last of which is update the heading with text from the form. Go us. We're masters now. All right, go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we'll pick it back up and learn some new stuff now that we've reviewed the homework.